Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our weekly office hours. This used to be a drag in the beginning, but I'm actually really having a good time with it. Plus, I get to hang out with you, Justin, because we're so busy throughout the day. So that's cool. But for you folks out there, if this is your first time, thank you so much for joining us. If you're a repeat offender, thank you so much for coming back. Today, we're going to be diving into the idea behind how to drive performance behind these sales assets that we send out there. And so, Justin's been doing this for a long, long time. So, he's going to give you 3 tips on optimizing or improving that performance. If you do have any questions, go ahead and post those questions, comments, feedback, etc. on the comments or in the comments area. Is it on or in? I don't know. I guess it depends. But put them in the comments, whether you're watching this on LinkedIn or YouTube, and we'll get to them in the Q&A section towards the end. If it's super urgent, like you got to go and like pick up your kids or do something and you can't stick around for the whole half hour, no worries. Just let us know. Just be like, hey, got urgent question. And we'll go ahead and get to them. So without further ado, Justin, why don't you take it away?
For sure. Yeah. So we're going to be diving into some tips today to increase your sales asset performance. This is really based on the last year of working with hundreds of the best product marketers and sales teams out there, really like rolling up our sleeves and working with them on building their templates, building their assets, looking at the analytics and seeing what drives engagement. And these tips are going to be a little bit different from what you usually hear. So, we've all seen that social proof, really helps in terms of driving engagement and conversions with sales assets, or that clear messaging and those sort of things. And without a doubt, they do. And I would say that, as product marketers, I think we all do our best to include all of those things in there. But today we're going to focus on maybe 3 more unusual things that really will help take things to the next level. And when I mean taking things to the next level, I'm talking about increasing engagement with sales assets by up to 5x, increasing conversions to, let's say, book meetings by up to 3x, and even reducing sales cycles. If you're using these assets throughout your buyer's journey, we've seen our customers reduce their sales cycles by up to 3x, right? So these are the type of performance metrics that we're seeing. And the assets that are performing the best, thinking about all the ones that we've seen and that we've worked with our customers on, there's 3 things that we're going to cover today that we've seen consistently across those assets. So with that, let me share my screen, and I'm going to dive into Asset Mule and show you actually an example asset that I've built and that I'm using here at Asset Mule every day. I'm sending these out every day. And it's our follow-up. It's actually our follow-up with interactive demo asset. So, after a really great demo or call that I have with a prospect, where I've uncovered some really interesting information about maybe their pain points and found ways that our solution really fits in solving those pain points. This is an asset that I send as follow-up to recap our conversation, but also highlight some of the key things that we can do to help them. And again, this is usually, again, post-demo. And it's also an asset that they can share around their team to give anybody else that wasn't on the call a sense of what Asset Mule is all about and how it can help them with these key pain points. And for those that aren't familiar with Asset Mule, again, we are a system for helping you very quickly and easily create sales assets, interactive sales assets, without needing any design or development resources. This is our template library that you can access for free when you sign up for Asset Mule, and you can build your own sales asset templates from them, right? And you can also create your own custom ones as well. But a really great place to start is with these with these templates that we have in our library, and that follow-up use cases are just a really great one as well. If you're thinking about one asset to build from the very beginning, that might be a really good one to consider. So let me hop over to the assets tab of our account. I'm going to pull up this example of an asset mule for a HubSpot asset that, let's say I had a demo with HubSpot, Jane at HubSpot, and this is what I'm sending to her in an email as a follow-up to that conversation. So talking about the 3 tips, the first thing that we see with the best performing assets are that they are personalized, or as our friends over at air traffic control like to say, they're relevant for the person that you're sending it to. And there's a couple things that I'll highlight here in terms of personalization. The first being adding their logo, right? At the very least, adding their logo in here to have some basic level of personalization. But really, you want to go further than that, right? And a couple different ways that you can go further than that is by having a personalized message here, right? That recaps some of the things that you talked about or highlights some of the things that you talked about in the conversation. But again, to take it even further than that is dropping in a personalized, in this case, only 40-second, right, video. I use Loom for this, and I'm doing a quick 40-second recording, less than a minute recording, and dropping in the Loom video here and having that as part of my asset, right? But even, again, taking it steps further, if you had that really great conversation with that prospect and you've identified some real pain points and challenges or goals that you think you can impact with your solution, putting in 3 to 5 bullet points here. It only takes a couple of minutes to recap a couple of the things that they really cared about in that conversation that they're trying to solve for, and it's the reason why they set up that demo for you, right? And then highlighting, again, 3 to 5 bullet points of how you can help them, right? What are the key things that got them excited on that demo that, you saw them, their eyes light up and they got really interested in and could see the light, right? And they had that aha moment. So, it really goes a long way to list some of these things here, right? And again, the pushback here might be, oh man, I have to do this after every single one of my demos, right? Send this, that's work, right? That takes time. Again, we're talking about a couple of minutes, right? Logo, 40-second video, highlighting some of those things in here, right? And then the rest of your asset can be pretty much standardized, right? Maybe you want to swap in the most relevant quote, right? And again, you can do that in our system by building out a snippet library of alternative quotes and filtering by different user personas, right? And then pulling in the most relevant quote that speaks to that particular buyer's pain points and use cases. But really, couple minutes. Usually this takes me less than 20 minutes, right, to put this thing together because I have a template that I'm building from. Really goes a long way. Stands out from the crowd of generic, one-pager PDFs that are getting sent to them. And again, when this is then sent from Jane to everybody else on the team, if those are the real pain points they're experiencing and they're looking to solve, this is really going to hit home with them. So that's the first tip that I have here is, personalizing the assets in the various ways that I pointed out here. So let's go to tip number 2, and that's creating interactive assets, right? And again, Jane, your prospects, right? They're getting bombarded with very flat, very static PDFs as sales assets or decks as sales assets. So if you really want to stand out and you really want to take things to the next level and you really want to drive engagement with your prospects, making your assets interactive is really, really important. So yeah, the video is great. That's a good starting point, but really taking it to the next level, including interactive demos in your assets, right? Jane's going to send this to other people on her team. And instead of having to jump on a second call, a third call, a fourth call, a fifth call, demo call, right? And demo all these different stakeholders just for them to understand what you do, you can actually embed these into your assets. We have a story lane component. So if you use story lane, you can simply add the URL of your story lane demo into the Storylane component and have it embedded right in your assets. If you're not a Storylane user, if you don't have an interactive demo, you can get started for free with Storylane and build your first demo in under 10 minutes for free and start embedding them in your assets. And then if you're not using Storylane, you can actually use our embed code components and embed the code from Navatic or from Reprise or Walnut or any of those really great interactive demo tools, and again, bring your product to life right in the assets. Also on the sort of track of interactivity is including other assets or other materials or information in your asset that they can explore. So we have a component in our system that we call Asset Hub. And essentially, you can build in a bunch of links to other things. This is the standard Asset Hub that I have in my follow-ups, right? Link to our website, link to the template library, the Asset Mule template library that's on our website, link to our pricing, right? So these are all just website URLs, right? But also other assets that I've built within Asset Mule are professional services one-pager, or our getting started guide one-pager with sort of 5 steps to getting started and videos, right? Sometimes I'll include a link to our Zoom recording, right? Or I've been using Fathom for recordings and note taking, and including the Fathom link there as well, right? So other things that they can browse and that they can interact with just to get more information about your product, right? We're all about buyer enablement here, and this is really enabling your buyer. So that's within the asset, but the next thing I want to show you is actually outside of the asset when you share that asset with them, with the prospect, and how to drive them to the page, right? And interact with the page. And that's, you have various options for sharing assets. You can share a link, you can share a link in screenshot, but this link in animated screenshot is a really interactive way of sharing your assets. So all you have to do is click on that option and then jump over to your email. And when you send this asset as an email to them, you can just paste that in here and you'll see it's an interactive preview of that asset, right? Scroll through, they can see, again, their logo, the welcome message, the list of priorities. They know it's personalized for them. And that's really going to drive them to click through to the asset. And again, because you're including all these interactive elements on the page of the asset itself, that's going to drive engagement. They're going to watch the video, or they're going to click through that interactive demo, or they're going to click through some of the links that you included in the Asset Hub, like our professional services asset here, right? And what's awesome, and really one of the sort of powers of making your assets interactive beyond driving engagement with your prospects, is also being able to track those engagements and get signals, buying signals, intent signals from those buyers. So because they viewed that page, now in my email inbox, I've gotten a notification that they viewed the asset. So I know there's life on the other side, but also I can actually see all those interactions that they had, right? I can see that they clicked on that video, that welcome video that I had there, that they clicked through the demo, and then they clicked on the link for the professional services. And now not only do I know that they're interested, but I also know how to follow up with them. They were interested in the professional services. Maybe I can take that angle in my follow-up, right? So again, tip number 2 is make your assets interactive. And again, that's going to drive way more engagement. That's where we talk about sort of the 5x engagement, right? But it's also going to give you insights into their interest and what they're interested in, which will really set you up for a great follow-up going forward, right? So that's tip number 2. Let's head back over to our asset over here. Where is it? Actually, it's here. And the last tip that I have here is to focus on conversion within your asset. So if you think about the standard PDF one-pager, there's no focus on conversion there. There's no way for them to convert from that asset other than responding to your email, right? You want to build conversion paths from within your asset. And what I mean by that is CTA buttons. So the ability, in our case, we have a freemium model for them to sign up for free right from the asset. So you'll see within this is a component here, the paragraph component. I have the ability to switch on a call to action button here, and style my call to action button, put some text in here, get started for free, and send them right to my Asset Mule sign up page, right? And again, I'll get those signals from Asset Mule that they clicked on that. Hopefully in your product metrics, you'll be able to see that they signed up and see them convert, right? So that's one example. But the other example is what I always include at the bottom of my assets, and I see this in the best performing ones as well, is not just a book a meeting button, but a calendar, right? A Calendly calendar, a HubSpot calendar, a Chili Piper calendar. There's a ton of them. Revenue Hero, right? This is just an embed code component where you can grab that embed code from those great calendar scheduling tools and drop that into your asset. Remove the friction, right, of them having to follow up and ask for a follow-up meeting. Give them access to your calendar right from the asset so they can book time with you right from it. So that's really the 3 tips that I'm talking about today. Again, we can talk about messaging. We can talk about being clear. We can talk about, adding social proof and all these things. I think those things aren't new, and there's a lot of people that have talked about it, and those go without saying. But if you really want to take your sales assets to the next level, if you really want to drive 5x more engagement, 3 times more conversions, and speed up your sales cycles by including these assets and reducing friction and driving engagement throughout your sales process, the 3 keys that we see, the 3 things that set the best performing assets apart from the average are personalization, interactivity, and building conversion paths directly in your assets. So I'm going to pause here and take any questions that you have.
Yeah, and Justin, I just wanted to add that we talked about interactive elements on those pages. You mentioned video. Video is so expansive. In fact, I'm actually writing a post right now about how you have to add in personalized video into your sales assets. And I think there was this idea, I remember when Vidyard and related tools came out, right? And it was like, oh, we're going to do like a video showing your name or doing these silly things. And that would be something that we would do from an outbound perspective. And, that may or may not work, but it's much more than that, right? Like the video is actually putting a human face. Now, humans, we, at least right now, you don't know what 10 years from now looks like, but we really respond to human faces, right? And so the ability to actually put that human touch, whether it's a outbound message, right, or a follow-up call, right, that little touch, because I'll tell you what, in addition to the fact that we're humans and we like to look at other humans and we connect because that's how we're wired, it also helps with emphasizing certain points, right? You might have an asset that has a lot of information, which is phenomenal, but you're sending it to a stakeholder that's maybe not that much of a reader. They're more of a auditory person or a visual person, right? And so to be able to put that in there to reinforce the text that's there is really, really powerful. For me, I prefer video. I don't think that's a shock to anybody, but for others, it may be text-based, right? So just some things to think about. And then the idea that you might have a one-to-many video. So this is something that marketing has created or communications or whatnot is created, and it's in the library of assets, and you can put it in there and it's super easy. We have snippets that allow for that to be done really eloquently. Or you use a tool like Loom or Vidyard, or there's Soapbox. There's a lot of different other tools out there that allow you to do that, to create a one-to-one video, right? So lots of different ways you can add that interactivity. I wanted to emphasize the video piece. So Jamie, thank you so much for your question. So the question is, if the asset is updated, does this update reflect when someone accesses the link? Yes.
Yeah, so this is a great question. And the answer is yes. These are dynamic live pages, right? So you can actually continue to build out the asset with more information throughout the sales process. The Asset Hub is a great example of that, right? Where, maybe after the first call, you've followed up with a case study, right? And then later in the sales process, you learn that you're facing a competitor, right? Um, so you can add another link to that Asset Hub with a competitive comparison page, right? Or maybe after we've seen people use some of these assets post sale, even for onboarding and trainings and so on. And after they may have a onboarding process that's broken out into several weeks with different trainings on different workflows and use cases, and they may be adding recordings of each of those sessions or videos or materials around those different use cases after every one of those trainings. So yes, absolutely, these are live dynamic assets that you can update, whether that update is fixing a spelling mistake. It's a lot harder to fix a spelling mistake in PDFs after they've been sent to hundreds of prospects. Removing or updating logos, right? If unfortunately a customer has churned or a really great customer has been added to the roster, or if it's actually adding more information to the live assets that you shared with a prospect. There's a second question here as well from Jamie. Does this replace a prospect portal or prospect landing page? It's a good question. It could, it couldn't, right? I mean, it's yes or no, right? If you this can be used as a prospect portal or a prospect landing page. We've seen people, and by that I don't know if you're referring to things like digital sales rooms. We have some customers that are using this as a digital sales room, right? Again, a live page where they're putting relevant content for that prospect throughout the sales process. We also have customers that are using this maybe within digital sales rooms, right? Again, these are pages, these are landing pages, links, so they can be embedded in anything that can embed a landing page or a link, right? So hopefully that answers your question. It's yes, it can be used for that, but it can also be used in conjunction or within those sort of prospect portals and landing pages. Talking about landing pages, there's a really interesting new use case that we're seeing for Asset Mule, and you'll want to stay tuned here because we're going to be releasing a template in our library for this, and that's actually using Asset Mule to create account-based marketing landing pages, right? And what I mean by that is, pages, let's say you have 50, 100 named accounts that you're going after, to create a page for each one of those named accounts that you can then drive ads to, right? And the CTA there can be book a meeting, and it could have the salesperson who owns that account's Calendly calendar in there, or a book a meeting button that goes to their Calendly. So you can drive ads or traffic to that page through ads, and or like in conjunction with that, you can have that salesperson that owns that account using that page for outbound, right? So while we call these sales assets, really from a technical perspective, they are landing pages, right? So they can be used for personalized, account-based, or even persona-based, person-based landing pages as well, right? So that's a really interesting use case here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jamie, for your question. And one thing that I think a lot about is we have these assets that are out there that, Justin sort of mentioned it a little earlier, like the idea that you have these PDFs, for example, or some non-interactive, non-web-based file that you put out there. Once they're over the fence, as Justin alluded to, they're incredibly different. I mean, you can't, right, update them. Now, there's other systems out there that might allow you to like get some tracking if someone downloaded the file or things like that. But the fact of the matter is, you want a real time, like constantly always on signal emitter, right? That's telling you whether your prospect is engaged or not. I mean, it happens all the time, right? For us sellers out there, you were in a conversation, you did a discovery call, etc. You sent some stuff over, and now the prospect goes cold and you have no idea what's going on, right? And then 6 months later, you get an email, right? And so, the ability to give or arm these prospects with experiences that are very specifically catering to them is really, really powerful. And the ability to update those things dynamically per, one of Jamie's questions here, again, is just super powerful. Like, we understand that there's a world where the PDF works and so on. But when we're talking about, sales assets that you're using that have to be dynamic, that are used in this one-to-one way, it's time that we just give a better customer or buyer experience.
Yeah, and if we take a quick step back and we talk about why this is important in our world today, right? The world of sales today and marketing today. We've all heard the stats, right? 87% of the sales process now happens without salespeople in the room, right? So if you think about it, you only have without something like this, you only have that moment where you're in the room with the prospect to control the narrative of your solution, right? And how you're portraying it to them and the problems that it's solving and so on. And this is really designed to address that issue where now there's going to be all these demos and conversations without you in the room. So let's put together a page that brings forth all the most relevant information as if you were in the room. What would you want to say to that prospect or that stakeholder that you can't get in the room with if you were in the room? You'd want to show them the product. So you embed that product demo video or that interactive demo. You'd want to speak specifically to the problems that they have and how you can solve it. So include that personalization, that level of personalization in the asset. So that's really the idea is, putting together that personalized pitch that today only happens when you have a meeting with a prospect, but be able to do that asynchronously. And we actually call this, there's two things you can, two phrases that I think are used a lot for this. One is asynchronous selling, right? And the other is buyer enablement, right? By giving your asset this, or your champion this asset, you're enabling them to sell on your behalf to other stakeholders that you won't be able to get in front of, but still have control in that narrative that they're going to be using when they're pitching your product, and the visibility in the interactions that are going to happen as they do it. So really, really exciting stuff, and we're excited to be a part of this next phase of sales.
Awesome. And folks, we are coming up here to the top of the session. If you do have any questions, comments, feedback, this is the time to go ahead and post those. And if you had to run and you're watching this on a replay, we watch this stuff all the time. We live on LinkedIn. So go ahead and add them, and then we will go ahead and reach out, and if you want to schedule a one-on-one demo or conversation, happy to do that. If you just want to talk shop, we're happy to do that too. So yeah, feel free to go ahead and not be shy and add all your feedback, questions, comments, and we will get to them. All right, I guess we'll go ahead and wrap up. First of all, thank you so much to everyone who's joined us today. If you're a returning visitor or attendee, thank you. If this was your first time, thank you as well. Really appreciate it. Hope this was helpful. If you're not an Asset Mule user, there's absolutely no risk. Go ahead and sign up. There's a free version if you want to kick the tires on it and play with it. We'd love to get your feedback on the actual product. How can we make it better? Is it hitting the mark? Are we delivering against the promise that we're fighting hard to deliver against? If not, let us know. We'd love to hear that. Also, if you're an existing Assamio user, thank you so much for that. And also, go ahead and follow us. If you like this content, go ahead and click on the follow button here on LinkedIn or the subscribe button here on YouTube. We are constantly, I think we're about to hit like 400 videos on YouTube, and we post a lot on LinkedIn. As I mentioned, we live on there. So yeah, we love doing that. We love community. We love communicating with you folks. And without further ado, have a wonderful, wonderful Wednesday.